Hi, I'm Gianluca Fiorelli and welcome back to the third session. Today we are going to have one of those new phases that really erupted in the SEO and AI search ecosystem community and lately in this last, let's say, 12 months, 18 months, with a really strong voice. If I have to imagine my guest, our guest, as a little boy, it would be probably the classic little boy that receive a, let's say, a toy as a gift, but breaks it because he wants to know how it works. So he is from Turkey, and I'm very happy to have another Turkish representative of the community here at the third session. And he lives in Ankara, and his name is, let's try to pronounce it correctly, Metehan Yeşilyurt. How are you doing?
Yes, thanks for having me today, and it's an honor to talk with you. I'm super excited about our topic today. Yes,
Okay. How things are going in Turkey, in Ankara? It's getting colder as it's getting colder here in Spain?
yes, it's getting colder. Generally it's colder than Spain. I
Yeah,
guess.
yes,
Yeah,
because you are in the interior of Turkey.
yeah.
And let's go let's start our conversation. And I will ask you my classic question. How is SEO treating you lately?
It's actually very easy to answer and hard to answer. I mean, the both sides. But the new shift is actually threatening my work. In my previous company, we were targeting US market, then search generative experience stuff just came out. Then ChatGPT released, and I dramatically saw the traffic increase, click increase. Besides visibility, were going better. But now we are here. It's I don't think AU and GEO is very different from SEO, but let's deep dive.
Yes, let's, as I used to say, let's try to dissipate the confusion with more certainty and to offer eventually insights and ideas for improving the understanding of this new landscape that is coming out, it's coming to us and it's already here. Anyway, you frequently made also, you just said that you don't think that the AAO, GEO are so different from SEO. I agree. Actually, I think that when misunderstanding is very basic misunderstanding when people say that SEO and, let's say, I search, SEO for I search, as I like to define it are two different things. But maybe because there is this idea of a very old idea of SEO, which is also, let's say, let's say, diffused also by the LLM themselves. Because if you have noticed, when the LLMs talk about SEO, always talk about something which was okay, fine 10 years ago. So keyword, 10 blue links, when we know that the 10 blue links do not really exist anymore. I mean, not in the classic sense. So
Yeah.
I think that there is this old idea that maybe is still there and nobody is able to make disappear about SEO, when instead SEO is more a framework about visibility and search. Searching in the sense of more generic search sense, and then we have specific ways to and specialization in SEO, which can be, let's call it the technical SEO, but we talk about surfaces. Local SEO is very different from general classic SEO and from news SEO, from image and visual search. So LLMs are substantially another surface. So it's another surface added to SEO. But eventually, if you would distinguish the vertical of SEO for AI search, let's call it AI search in terms of generative search, so what is defined as GEO, and AI search for meant as things like AI overview or Perplexity, which is somehow answer engine optimization, AEO, from the classic SEO. that we all know. What should be these slight differences that you usually see and define?
Yes, I also tend to use AI search or AI SEO more often. I also love using AU and GEO terms in general, but I believe if you build the strong fundamentals of SEO for your website, for your brand, it's very effective for AI search. The things are changing, especially on the retrieval part and citation selection, the machine generated content part, especially in the re-ranking part. And these are both valid for AI overviews, AI mode, ChatGPT, Perplexity, all LLMs actually. And there is a settings in your LLM, and we couldn't change these settings, but it's called temperature settings. So every time we ask a question or we start a conversation with LLMs, they are basically trying to mimic the natural human conversation flow. I mean, if we meet together, if we meet with you tomorrow, and if we talk, if we start with the same question, the context won't change. Your questions stay same. Basically, it will be very similar, but our wordings, our semiotics even can change. So there we are shifting our focus from deterministic search engines to probabilistic systems. So I believe this is the most hardest to explain part at the moment.
Yes, and I read one, I mean, quite extreme definition and about LLMs today, but I mean, extreme but quite good analogy. It was saying LLMs are like autosuggest on steroids because they go, apart from that, actually, they are always suggesting something at the end of a conversation to maintain the conversation. And maybe we can talk about this later, but also because the way they are doing, because they are probabilistic, so they are, and as for the way we're working, we are substantially trying to guess statistically which words are following the other in the context of a conversation. So this is, in the sense, it's somehow a sort of auto-suggest on steroid. But anyway, when it comes to AI search and LLMs, let's talk about Google. I think because I'm sure you have studied Perplexity deeply, but let's say even if ChatGPT is probably the real competitor of Google, Perplexity is somehow struggling to have
Yes, as a
a market
big
share.
market share at the moment, yeah.
Yeah, but let's talk specifically about Google and the variation of a use of AI that Google present to us, because we have the one that we see every day, which is AI overview.
Yeah.
Then we have AI mode, and now Google is testing it a lot. We have web guide. Oh, the three are based on Gemini. So we could also put Gemini as the third alternative, Google alternative for searching with AI. Have you had the opportunity to start seeing and studying what are the real differences between, let's say, AI overview, AI mode, and eventually also web guide?
Yes, in the great and old days, we were all chasing for traffic clicks, and it was easier if you compare with the today, of course, and less competition. And let's say a decade ago, also there were some keywords or keyword variations groups, also high, very competitive. But when we focus today, we can see millions of new pages with using AI slope at the moment creating, and now we also have an indexing problems as SEOs. And I believe Google has the best ranking system ever. I believe everyone can agree with me on this. The on the AI overviews and AI mode, and these are actually different products at the moment. They have different tabs. And what I can say is we were focusing on informational queries, because especially if you focus on the long tail keywords variations, you can drive more traffic in a short time. But within the AI overviews, especially for the recipe websites, let's say, they're losing traffic, news websites, if they heavily focused on the informational part in their websites. Within the AI overviews, I can say, yes, we see a very dramatic increase on the click size, and visibility matters most at the moment. And within the AI mode, especially, it's very challenging for me when I first started working or optimizing for AI overviews and AI mode right now. It's it was very challenging, and I can say these are different products at the moment. They have different types, and as you mentioned, we also now have a web guide. I believe Google is testing it. Unfortunately, we are losing clicks, and we can see sudden shifts when we just open our Google Analytics account tomorrow or next week. And there's a crocodile in our Search Console accounts at the moment. So we can see the great decoupling at the moment. So it's very challenging. And I think it's also good for user experiments. Sometimes people just looking for simple answer. And I guess within the latest developments in the AI search industry at the moment. So I guess Google is happier if we compare with the last decade, I believe, because query fanouts also increasing the daily search volumes at the moment. So yes, it's interesting times and technically different products, and we are still trying to figure out how can we win citations or brand mentions at the moment. So for the next year, I believe we can find better organic ways to increase our brand citations.
Yes, surely. And I think that Google maybe has is testing it right now also in a mode ways to make links, citation links, with one in the column more to stand out more because there are tests showing that if you go over on one of these links cited on the sidebar, it presents a web guide style presentation of the content presented. So that is very interesting and maybe is going to increase the CTR, which is actually very, very, very small. But in fact, people is obviously blaming Google and let's say especially AI overview because AI mode doesn't have this great use, but AI overview is there. We cannot quit it, and nobody can quit AI overview from the SERP. And also we also saw it popping up in people also ask and so on. And obviously, people is blaming Google of stealing, apart stealing the content, also stealing the traffic. But actually, we can also say that it's an amplification of a zero-click behavior that we were already living. So it's, I mean, if we the only problem that is enhancing that zero-click. Therefore, if in AI search the most important metric is visibility, and then we also should try to define what kind of visibility, because you can be visible and invisible at the same time. We have another problem to find the correct metrics to measure the visibility. There are the tools for prompting, tracking, prompt tracking tools, but more and more people are doubting about the validity of this kind of tools because we know that prompt, as you were saying at the beginning, can offer a different answer depending on the personal conversation story of each one. And so, how do you deal with this problem of measuring the visibility?
Great question. First, I wish Google Search Console or Bing Webmaster Tools, let's say, they could bring more tools or insights actually. And for the visibility part, this is valid for all in the last 20 years of marketing, digital marketing, let's say. Attribution always comes last. For the visibility part, I'm trying to use multiple tools at the moment for the third-party SEO tools. You name it. I'm testing every SEO tools at the moment and trying to see which queries or questions are now triggering AI overviews. And Google Cloud Console is my another friend, and they have a Vertex AI configuration at the moment, and I highly recommend that you can use it. You can set up it for your website. It's a little bit technical, but you can handle it, I'm sure. And for measuring visibility parts, I'm always trying to. I realized that I started to use more regex in Search Console when it comes to filtering. I'm trying to see what questions actually are visible in my Search Console queries at the moment, or and we know OpenAI has an agreement with Microsoft, so Bing is another wrapper here to use, and of course Google Analytics. But to measure it in an efficient way, it's obvious we need more insights from especially official products like Search Console and Bing or just others, including OpenAI.
Yeah, yes. And I was recently in a conference and we were making the hypothesis, which I think is quite realistic, that as soon Google and maybe also Bing, but especially ChatGPT and I don't know, Perplexity will find a way to monetize with advertisement. This platform, they will have to offer at least a sort of dashboard for advertiser, because if not, how can you justify and ask them to advertise to something which is a black box? So maybe we need to wait ads to start popping up in LLMs and AI answer, because until that moment, probably neither Google nor AI overview will have the interest of showing anything about how things are popping out. And in terms of Google, I think that honestly, this will be something that our friends of page search will have, but not SEO. So we will do something which was very common, and still quite common, to have, let's say, create as an SEO an account in AdWords, putting our credit card in order to see data, even if we don't create any campaign. Probably this is going to be the only way in the future.
Yes,
And
they are still trying to find and monetize the all AI search, these kind of new cards
well,
or AI
Google is
apps.
testing on AI mode, and I think that it was quite obvious that they started with things like shopping,
Yeah,
because shopping is by default something that can be easily embedded into an LLM answer. So they're trying also to do something similar when they insert local search feature like the maps.
yeah,
But there is more difficult because the structured data, let's call it in general terms, structured data is not a feed. So it's harder for them to embed it inside. So maybe that's why we started to see with shopping the appearance of advertisement. The problem is how to embed text AdWords, text ad, because we know we have legislation. They must declare that if I want to embed, let's say, a promoted chunk into the answer, they need to put it. This chunk is sponsored by, and it is going to create an uncanny valley sensation when you are reading the answer, because part is generated by organic and these parts are generated by answer. Maybe I don't know. We have to find some way. It's still something really on the march and in continuing construction. And one thing that nobody really talks about, and I was always a passionate, maybe because of my past in the audiovisual industry, is about, I mean, everybody talks about AI and image, but more in the entertainment part of generative image, like Banana, like, for instance, for video, Sora, and VO free and so on. But we know that LLMs are fundamentally multimodal, and they are starting to push the multimodal nature inside the answer. I was just doing before our conversation a search on ChatGPT for work, and it was about what the island in Cabo Verde to visit and something like this. And ChatGPT was showing me a gallery of photos for each island. But nobody is really talking about how to optimize image and videos for LLMs and AI search. And we know that exists for the text, for the question, and the query fanad that Google also have, Gemini also has the visual query, visual search query fanout, let's call it. You wrote and talk about this. Can you explain a little bit this less known aspect of AI search?
Yes, you're very experienced on this topic, by the way, and I love reading your blogs, thoughts, ideas. For the image part, yes, the multimodal capabilities of LLMs are not even close to Google at the moment when it comes to crawl a page, understand the whole context with including images at the moment. So Google has the best system also on this part. I built a Screaming Frog custom JavaScript to identify some image gaps, some, let's say, premium colors gaps on your website in page level. And I realized that actually, I think every week, new people, new users are joining using Google Lens, or they're basically asking questions with attaching some images. Let's say if you are watching a TV series or movie, you can light a jacket for a woman, and then you can take a picture and search online at the moment. So what I realized after my work and some research experiment, actually Etsy is doing amazing job on this part. Of course, there's also user generated e-commerce platform. I can say some sellers are insistently using premium color names on their product images, in their titles. And I realized that I actually at least expected to see more Amazon results from my experiments. But I realized that many new domains actually appearing those visual search and visual query fanouts. What I'm trying to say is blue isn't always classic blue. It can be some other generations of blue, and some people, some users are exactly using that generation or variation name of color. And as SEOs, I believe we are behind the race at the moment. Visual part is very important, and actually we need to use more user friendly and maybe bot friendly alt text. In the last couple of years, we were only optimizing for alt text, some, let's say, image names on the server, but it's now beyond that, and we need to aware of it.
Yeah, yes, I think I mean, it's not new because it was important for Lens, it's not new.
Yeah.
So it was important for visual search, but I think that in this case, using the same analysis we do with embedding, cosine, similarity, but specifically for image, for instance, or for also video, in order to
Yes, video.
know where to exactly place the image inside the content text. Or if, let's think you were doing the example of fashion, let's think in the classic fashion product page description or the classic fashion website, which is usually 90% image and video and 10% text. So how to use all the information and the small textual information that we can add in the text, in the alt text, in the name of a file, in a way that is correct, but through embedding analysis. And so using also embeddings and cosine similarity analysis in order to understand, okay, this image should also have close this other image because they match, because people tend to associate one image to the other, and so on. And this could be also used eventually for related products or related category and product variants, etc., etc., etc. I think that it's a field that nobody is really talking about. And it's weird because we know that not only the young generation are using visual search so much, massively.
Yes, may I ask you a
Yeah.
question here? Can you also explain for our listeners or viewers what is semiotics in a
Oh,
in
yeah.
a
This
brief
is a
explanation?
concept, but actually, I think it's incredibly important because we are the same set, in my opinion, are moving from the classic monolithic interactive consensus, like let's say proposition, so that the 10 links were, to something which is more narrative and creating the medium is the answer. Before the medium was the medium, just that. And so the medium is the universe. So semiotic, it means all the sign that we putting into content, meaning content, text, image, audio, video, whatsoever, have a meaning which
Yes,
resonates to the people that we want to target. Very stupid, there can be symbols, they can be signifiers, something, and other things. But for instance, the symbols, when we see the 4-star of the
yes,
aggregator rating, that is a symbol which is universally recognized as a quality score. But in text, let's say Q, the classic tickets, for instance, for where you skip Q ticket. The definition of skip Q ticket is another signal, textual one, but it's another signal. The fact that if you are doing a search asking how to go from the Ankara
yes,
airport to Ankara and presenting, actually the serves are all semiotics in this sense because they present the maps, they present the blue line presenting you the how to go from here, from there, and then the information, the icon of a car, the icon of a taxi, the icon of a bus, and so on. So it's important to start understanding this, and image are
complete
essential for
picture.
this.
Yes, yes,
For instance, let's say that we have an AI overview, and we are lucky enough to be at least one of the three immediately presented sources.
yes,
We know that CTR is very hard, but if we work, the only things that can make us stand is the tune-based image.
yes,
If we use very well and choose very well the tune-based image through, let's say, for a search, I was saying before about what island to visit for a vacation in Cabo Verde.
yes,
If we choose an image that works very well in this very small frame that is given to image in the thumbnail, which is through our embedding analysis, very central to the topic that people
yes,
are
yes,
searching,
right.
probably the eye is going immediately to the image before even going to the answer. And so it will stay in the memory also the things close to the image, which is the title of the article, the name of the source, and so on. So yes, it's extremely important for me, and it's going to be even more important. Then we could also go with
Yes, what I'm trying
symbolic
to
AI, which may
yes,
be something that can return is not really the type of AI that LLMs are using, but maybe something that they will return considering because it's where the real grounding can be achieved
yes,
on knowledge graph, on these kind of things. But I
yes,
mean, it's you the one, and the guest in the conversation is not me. So let's turn to you. You
yes,
recently you said something that really resonated to me. It's okay for Perplexity. I needed to really dig and break Perplexity in order to understand it. For Google, we have everything in the documentation. Jamie Indigo do something similar, and but does it with OpenAI, and she always report all the new documentation of OpenAI, which is very very hidden inside the OpenAI's website. So, what having studied so deeply Perplexity, let me put in context to the question. Perplexity, if we think to answer engine optimization in this sense, Perplexity is the things that closer to AI overview. If we think to having you study Perplexity and having you study AI overview because we need to study it, and having seen all this documentation, public and very visible documentation by Google, what are the difference between the two that you would like to highlight? Because obviously, when we create content, we should find some common minimal denominator in order to not think and drive us crazy that, okay, this work for AI overview, this work for Perplexity, this work for ChatGPT. At the end of the day, it's always the same content. We cannot create a monster because we want to be visible everywhere.
Yes, Perplexity, if you compare with Google and Bing and ChatGPT, of course, they have a very small market share at the moment. But what I surprised me, I started heavily working with Perplexity in a couple months ago. I realized that first, there are some technical layout differences, like asking some or showing some follow-up questions. And I can say the first citation result in the Perplexity also influences the follow-up questions at the end of each answer. So it also encourages people to ask more questions. When Perplexity first entered the market, the web retrieval part was very challenging because if you were trying to use web search function or grounding with LLMs, it was creating many hallucinated responses. Even you include the web search results. What Perplexity built is, based on my findings, they are trying to minimize or let's say zeroing down the hallucination risk. So they are using very high embedding similarity, and I believe Google is also using very high embedding similarity, but it depends on many cases for the commercial queries, information navigational, etc. But Perplexity is trying to use collecting more different perspective results from web search. If they're using Google, it seems so, or Bing or DuckDuckGo or just others, they're trying to show more diversified results with high embedding similarity, and they're using many running fact check in their systems at the moment, I can say. So they're also successful in the market.
Interesting. And somehow there are two way of thinking about optimizing for research, and one is where I recognize myself more, even if I don't deny the other one, is go first with your foundation. So technical perfection, so that all the content of any kind can be retrieved or used by LLMs, by Google, etc., etc., etc. Then orchestrate the architecture of your content, and then obviously create great content, which is so good that you can easily promote it and amplify. And then there is the other, let's say, part of the community saying, go first with the amplification, because what is really works is being mentioned by sources trusted by AI. I think the two are complementary. When you are working with your clients, what is your workflow considering these two different views and complementary views?
Yes, great questions. Thanks for that. And this question will appear more in the next year, I believe, for every SEO team, in-house, freelance, or just agencies or any brands. First, I start with technical SEO fundamentals. Actually, what is different in AI search? If you compare with the chasing tabular links, traditional SEO, right now we were targeting clicks from deterministic results in Google SERPs or Bing or others. Of course, we will talk about Google at the moment, and those were the results from deterministic system with feeding user signals in their Google backend or ranking system. So it's now more complex, and we are now chasing clicks, CTR visibility from machine generated text. That's one of the main differences in AI search at the moment. So the retrieval part is very important, and I start optimizing with an website audit, of course. I'm using desktop SEO softwares, cloud ones. I'm basically testing every tool at the moment, as I mentioned. I start with AI visibility audits and start with SEO fundamentals, cleaning broken links, improving the internal linking system performance. So you can easily identify a website is using many hundreds of AI generated contents if they're not using internal links. You can identify. So Google can do it. In the near future, I believe OpenAI also will do it. I start with a website technical audit. It's very similar to SEO. Then I start with mapping topical clusters of the website of brand, and I'm trying to understand how brands represents in LLM's embedding models. Let's say Google has different embedding models. OpenAI has different, also cloud. So I trying to connect with the dots with the embedding data, website technical audit with improving internal linking, creating some new sections on the website, then trying to understand. I believe this is the most important part, the user intent. I was very likely to use keyword research in the couple of years ago. Right now I'm switched my focus and I'm trying to focus on user intent with using, of course, keyword research, but I'm trying to collect real user questions from the web. You can use people also ask. You can try to crawl Reddit, Quora, and some other platforms at the moment. So website audits, embedding data, and of course your representation in the embedding model with trying to match with user intent. So I have many spreadsheets at at the moment.
And talking about technical, one classic of technical SEO is log analysis. You talk about using log analysis in order to understand how AI bots are substantially visiting, hitting your website. And there are tons of different types of AI bot. With one for the models, with one for the grounding, and also there are multiply these for different all the different types of LLMs now existing. Do you have seen some peculiar difference, for instance, from how the bot of OpenAI visit a website from the bot of Gemini visiting a website? There are some differences, or more or less we work the same.
That's a challenging question. I can easily say Google has the best layout parser system at the moment, and I feel like the all LLM user agents are using layout parsing system, and I believe they're very similar at the moment, and they are not successful as Google. Of course, you can identify user agents from analyzing log files, but when it comes to log files, I'm asking this question to my clients or potential clients: what are your top pages in LLMs and what are your top pages in humans at the moment? We can see which pages are very popular in humans. We can use Google Analytics, but we can also use identify the top pages for LLMs for the retrieval parts from log files, because we only see the traffic data in Google Analytics or other analytics platforms. And if your brand is mentioned in LLMs, in let's say AI mode, Gemini Deep Research, OpenAI, Perplexity, and others, it doesn't guarantee you will drive traffic. And we also know everyone has different representations in their minds of any entity. Let's say Apple, let's say Samsung, or just others. Everyone has different thinking mechanism. if you can identify which pages are trying to retrieve by LLMs at the moment, AI search engines, you can identify these pages with analyzing log files. So I believe this is the most important part in my works and experiments so far.
So maybe introducing the log analysis for AI bot it could be a more correct way to understand visibility than
Yes.
generating synthetic prompts.
Yes. You can try to generate synthetic prompts, or you can
No,
use.
I was saying that maybe just analyzing the raw data of a log file
Yes.
without you generating synthetic prompts. Could be a good way to understand the grade of visibility you may have, at least for your website, and to understand, okay, this section of a website is really, really interesting for LLMs, and this other part no. So how can we improve the visibility and the interest of the LLMs for these other sections that are not so frequently hit by LLM bots? This could be
Yes.
a good way to do that kind of analysis that we were talking in the very beginning. So let's do a last question about AI search. AI search is, well, you also declare that it's very hackable. And I don't want to ask you ways to hack the LLMs because, I mean, we are honest marketers. About that, many of us, we would be very, very hypocrite, not saying that at least we didn't try one experimental acts in order to see how things are working. But let's talk on the other side. Spam is becoming so evident in LLMs. How do you think OpenAI, Perplexity, obviously Google, will find a key for starting doing spam updates on a LLM level? Because we say on grounding, supposedly Google at least, but also OpenAI, if it refers to Bing search, they should really rely on search results. So formally, the search results should be in their majority cleanup of spam. The problem is that maybe the query find out are so deep that the spam is surface again. And so it's a matter of increasing even more the spam attention also for the very, very, very long tail and query find out. But for, let's say, the answer generated by training data, because maybe this training data is using websites that have AI slop inside, that have thin content inside, that have spammy content inside, like the infamous listicles and so on. How do you think this player could fight LLM spam?
Mhm. That's another great question, and I believe this will be one of the most popular questions for the next year. How OpenAI will fight with spam. I can say Google has another best system for fighting spam. Of course, we know they have a more than 20 years of experience of spam topic, and I realized that they have much better adversarial filtering in their API documentation, and you can read that. So I believe OpenAI and others needs to build an in-house spam team, especially on the retrieval part. Let's say they don't want to name it search team like Google, but it's obvious they will need.
Well, they don't want
There are.
to name it like that, but they are OpenAI is hiring SEO.
Yes, they are hiring us. Yes,
Continue.
that's funny, and you can even see some job listings on the Meta sites as well. They need to build some in-house team to fight with spam, and I believe they can start working with some maybe agencies or some other companies, just like Google for human evaluation part, and they're basically the actual bias of LLMs are weighted for, especially for the open source models. And of course, they have fine moderation systems, let's say it's valid for OpenAI, ChatGPT, Perplexity Cloud, and others, let's say Mistra, I can say they're one of the biases are recency, content freshness. So there are some also academic research papers around it. You can just use very recent date on your document, and you can see you are likely in the re-ranking phase. So it's one of them. The second one, I can say it's a general problem, not relating with span 100%, but lost in the middle context problem. So LLMs are better if they trying to categorize or classify the content, especially on the beginning part and ending part. Basically, you can use more FAQs at the end, and you can use more tables in the middle of your content, and you can see the difference. The third one is data poisoning. It's it's awful actually. There is no way to generate gigabytes of data at the moment, but you can. There are also some academic research around this topic. I guess Brittany mentioned it. The
With Brittany, you mean Brittany Muller?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Hi,
250
Brittany.
documents are hyper, yes. Enough to poison any LLM data at the moment. And I guess people will find better ways to use data poisoning in an efficient way in the 25, 26. And the fourth one, I can say, they basically, for every new model release, they're more capable of understanding some prompt injection attacks, but it's still working. So basically, you can use some authoritative sentence in your web pages, and you can also influence the LLM's
So
citation.
right now you are saying to me that you can manipulate the answer of LLM taking EAT signals substantially. Yeah.
Yes, you can just I don't want to encourage this.
Oh, no, me neither. But
Yeah,
maybe it's also this could be also the way for LLM to start finding ways to fight spam to anchor the EA8 signal to truth
yes.
knowledge graph. So to
Yes.
say, okay, you are saying that you are this, and this, but let's
Yes.
say on public knowledge graph, for instance, the same Wikipedia or Wikidata better, if you really are so the brand that you are saying to be, or such an important brand as you are saying to be, and maybe not only introducing brand signal, true brand signal into the game for understanding the spam, but also recovering a very, very old concept, which is the trust rank.
Yes. They have a system like this because Google is much better than other LLMs for the ranking part and for the personalization part because they're collecting more data. OpenAI is trying to collect more data, but if they somehow in the future, if they fine tune the part with user data, they also, I believe, realize they can provide more accurate results or less hallucinated results. So there's also chain of thought process at the moment, and you can influence the chain of thought, deep reasoning process or just reasoning process with just using few tokens. Actually, we were talking about keywords and we were now talking about tokens for LLMs at the moment because every keyword has different token IDs even in different models under the same company. Let's say OpenAI, they're using different tokenizer than Google. You can influence the re-ranking process because some systems, some search web tool process are just using LLM as a judge method. If you're using an LLM as a re-ranker, you can influence it. There are some research papers, and it's also public. You can read post from Andrea Volpini. She also mentioned a research paper named Rank Anything First. And if you use some tokens to influence LLMs at the moment, yes, you can do it. So choosing some few tokens are only enough to influence LLM citation speed process. I'm also testing it.
Well, we are all
I
testing.
hope
We
I
are
hope
in the testing
yes.
testing phase of this part. And okay, I think we talked too much, almost potentially
Yes.
an hour about
Yeah, I know.
AI and so on. Let's conclude the conversation
Yes.
talking about you. So I was right when the presentation I was imagining you like the classy little kid that receives a game as a gift and breaks it in order to understand how it works.
Yes, I mean, you're asking my research and beginning of
No,
this.
no, 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 no. When you, it's more about you. So when
Yeah.
I was presenting you, I was imagining you as the classic kid when, let's say, at birthday, you received a game and okay, start to play with this game, but then let's say a little
Yes.
card and breaks it because he wants to know how it works. I was correct in this kind of figuring you.
No. I believe respect many great names, including you, in the search space. We are trying to move with ethical ways, but somehow you need to push boundaries to understand how systems work. Sometimes I'm running around the lines of when pushing boundaries at the same time, but it's very important to how also you tell the people about these systems. And I, as I mentioned, I love reading your posts, your ideas, your thinking process, so I'm trying to also mimic those process in my mind and
Thank you.
understand systems better. And of course, end of the day, someone needs to pay the bills, so we're trying to
Yeah,
make
obviously.
money with using our skills. So yes, that was the process, I can tell.
And what Metehan likes to do apart from working and studying AI search?
I'm a proud dad. I have a daughter. She's just around 2 years old. I'm working in remote at the moment in Turkey, in Ankara. Of course, I traveled to some conferences or visiting my friends outside of the country. I love watching football at the moment. Maybe it's a cliche, but I won't say I love reading books. And I'm obsessed with the stock market at the moment. Yes. Taking care of
Okay.
my daughter, watching football, playing some video games, and everything comes second right now.
I mean, it's normal, quiet life, which is
Yes.
not bad at all. Nobody, not everybody is made for, I don't know, diving or doing very extreme sports. Me neither.
Yes.
So thank you, Matana. It was a real pleasure to have you here at the third session.
To
Let's
me.
say maybe one day, let's think about maybe one day in the future, making a wider conversation with
Yes. Yes.
also other people like you cited them, Britain and Andrea, who are also my friends. And so we can do a sort of panel about where AI search is going. Thinking about
Yes.
this
Yes.
kind of fancy name. Let's think about it. So I thank you.
Thank
And
you so much.
let's say for you, my friends, thank you for having been also you, my guest, during this episode. Remember to ring on the bell and to subscribe to the channel so you will be notified as up a new episode of a session will pop up. Thank you and see you later.